Okay, everyone, we're going to go live with the meeting here. I just want to welcome everyone to this evening's meeting. My name is Nancy Thompson. I'm the Secretary Treasurer to the Committee of Adjustment. This afternoon's meeting is the first meeting for the newly appointed committee members. And before we start the meeting, there are a couple of formalities that I want to go through. Have the committee members reviewed the proposed chairperson's rotation list? And if any questions or comments?
No.
Okay, so hearing none, if I can have a motion to accept the chairperson's rotation list as circulated, so it would be a motion and a seconder, please.
I'll move it, Nancy. I'll move the chairperson list as circulated.
All right, Linda moved that, and a seconder, Chris. Thank you. And all in favor? All right, thank you. And then for the meeting calendar, have the committee members had a chance to review the balance of the meetings for 2023 and any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, and a mover and a seconder for that. Charles moved, and a second.
I'll second it, Stephen.
Stephen, thank you. And all in favor? That's everyone. Thank you. Okay, so based on the chair rotation schedule, then Charles Zeiler is the chairperson for this evening's meeting. So I'll ask Charles to please start the meeting. Thank you.
Great, thanks everyone. Before we start the meeting, I'd like to read a land acknowledgement. The land on which we meet has been here from time immemorial. People have inhabited Southern Ontario for about 10,000 years, and we acknowledge the neutral people, also called Attawandaron, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee, people who lived here when settlers arrived and who share this land with us. May we together learn to care for and respect each other, our flora and fauna, and the land we inhabit together. So I'd like to remind the committee and members of the public that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the township's YouTube channel. The meeting is being held electronically due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Precautions and measures are in place regarding social distancing to ensure the health and safety for those in attendance at the municipal office. Anyone who's registered to participate in this meeting will be invited to speak in the order of the applications being heard. I will now do a roll call of the committee for the benefit of the public watching this meeting. When I call your name, please wave at your camera and say here or present. I, Charles Zeidler, am present and chairing the meeting. Linda Dixon.
Here.
Chris Fletcher.
Present.
Stephen Hartman.
Present.
Jeremy Karn.
Here.
David Gundrum, our planner.
Present.
And Nancy Thompson, the Secretary Treasurer.
Present.
Great, thank you. So I'll now provide explanation of the procedure for this meeting. Each application will be read by Nancy, and she will ask each applicant to make a brief presentation, not to exceed 5 minutes. The committee will be given an opportunity to question the applicant. Any other person who has registered with the recording secretary and is wishing to address an application, either for or against, will be given the opportunity to speak. Please make sure you have turned on your microphone and video and identify yourself clearly for the recording secretary. After everyone has had an opportunity to speak, the committee will make a decision on the application. Once discussion on your application is complete, please mute your microphone and turn off the video. You are free to leave the meeting at this time or remain and listen to the balance of the applications. Applicants are advised that each application has a 20-day appeal period as required under the Planning Act. In accordance with Bill 23, which received royal assent on November 28, 2022, appeals may only be submitted by the applicant, the municipality, certain public bodies, and the minister. The last day of appeal for the applications being heard today is May 11th, 2023. So at this time, I will ask if any members of the committee, if they are declaring a pecuniary conflict of interest with any of the applications. Okay. So I will ask Nancy to read the first application, please.
Thanks, Charles. The first application this evening is minor variance application A11 2023 for Rebecca McNevin for the property at 2150-2154 Three Bridges Road. The property is zoned agricultural and contains 2 single detached dwellings, an accessory building, and a play structure. The property is currently developed with 2 single detached dwellings, which is considered legal nonconforming. An addition is being proposed to the dwelling at 2153 Bridges Road for a 30 square meter front porch and an attached 80 square meter 2-car garage. And the applicant is requesting relief from section 4.1.4B to expand the legal nonconforming use of a single detached dwelling by 49%, whereas a maximum 25% expansion is permitted. Andrew Cressman and Rebecca McNevin are here to speak to the application.
Hello?
Yeah, you're good to go, Andrew.
Good to go. Yeah. From our end, it's just to create more living space, bedrooms especially, and the add to garage. There's not much extra information to go over. Just more or less if there's any questions.
We've spoken with all of our neighbors and they're all in favor. We've had no problem in the neighborhood with the idea.
Great, thank you. Do any of the members of the committee have any questions of the applicants? No? Is there any members of the public that wanted to speak about this application? Nobody was here that you knew for this one, Nancy?
Not for this application, Charles, no.
Okay, great. So how would the committee like to handle this application? Linda? You're still muted, Linda.
Sorry about that. Hang on, I just gotta find the details. Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, I move that minor variance application A11 2023 concerning the property known municipally as 2153 Bridges Road to request relief from section 4.1.4B of the zoning bylaw to permit the enlargement of the existing dwelling by approximately 49% of the total floor area, whereas the bylaw limits the enlargement of a legal non-conforming residential building by not more than 25%. And that be approved subject to the conditions set out in the report that the dwelling enlargement be consistent with the site plans submitted and dated January 18th, 2023.
Thank you, Linda. Do we have a seconder for that motion?
I can second that. Jeremy?
Jeremy, thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, so all those in favor? And that looks like everybody, so all those opposed would be none. So Rebecca and Andrew, just want to remind you that the last day of appeal expires on May 11th, 2023. And
Okay.
then Nancy, so the motion has been passed, and Nancy will send you some information with that as well.
Perfect.
Good. And then if you guys want to stay, just remember to shut your video and mute your microphone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
The next application is minor variance application A12 2023 for Donna Sutka for the property at 10 Chalmers Street in Winterburn. The property is zoned settlement residential R1 and contains a single detached dwelling. The applicant is proposing to construct a new 86 square meter detached carport / sauna structure on the property and is requesting relief from the following. Section 6.4.1A to permit an accessory building to be located between the building line and the street. Section 6.4.1C to permit an accessory building in the front yard. And section 6.10.2D to reduce the building line setback adjacent to a street, being Chalmers Street, from 6 meters to approximately 3.4 meters. And Paul Sitka is here to speak to the application. Paul, if you'd like to turn your audio and your video on. There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I have to apologize for not being Donna. She looks better on Zoom than I do. Aside from all of that, I did receive the notice from GRCA. We have two parts of our property that have that are GRCA controlled. I received notice from them that there's absolutely no issue with building where we propose to do so. That's the first thing. If you see, is it okay to use share screen on this for a moment? Nancy?
Yeah, we sure can. I just have to,
I can activate it here as long as yours is on. I
yeah,
think.
mine is on.
Okay.
Should work.
Oh. If not, I'll do it with pictures. I've got them here too. No. It says host disabling participant screen sharing.
Yeah, just hold on here. There we go. Okay, try again now, Paul.
Thank you very much. There's what I want. So I'm just giving you the broad strokes on this.
There we go.
Yeah, that's clear now.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
So we are working on the south side of the property, as you can see by that. And as you can see by the property itself, we have no neighbors abutting this area. That's going to be a problem. Doesn't seem to be an issue at all. The sight lines where Chalmers makes its bend at the bottom here, you'll see it. Sight lines won't be impeded by this structure at all, as is evidenced by this, but also in front of this, between the proposed structure and Chalmers Street, we have a big tree there anyway, but the sight lines aren't even impeded by that tree. I did want to show you why this is most acceptable site to build on. If we were to go to the north side of the property, give me a moment. I don't know if I can. On the north side, if you go to the other side of that, that's not the one. If we go to the north side of the property, on the other side of that arc, there's several issues. One is we would still need to seek minor variance because that lot line is still too close. And secondly, if we were to try and run a road right around to the side of the building, we have difficulties with gas line, hydroelectric, and belt coming through there, as well as a septic system on that side of the house. So that side is really not a very good option. Where we have proposed it, to try and move it back further beside the house is a problem because of this. Our grade here is a solid story grade because we have a walkout basement. So we're already pushing it to the limit, which you'll see where that white snow is. That's sort of the edge of the proposed lot for that. So it would appear that this would probably be the only reasonable site, both from access from a road and garage or driveway, as well as on the site and the site restrictions itself. So I trust that you might understand that and grant the variance. And my final very compelling reason for doing all this, or for today, is that yesterday was my birthday and I'm not getting any younger. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Suka. Do any members of the committee have any questions for the applicant? Okay, not looking like it. Oh, Linda, you look like you were going to say something. No? No. Okay. Chris, go ahead.
So can someone from planning, either Nancy or someone else, tell me what the actual road, dedicated road bed is in that area?
Sounds like a David question.
Through the chair, just to clarify, Member Fletcher, you're asking what the road width is through that area?
Right, I see on the plan that it's much it's much broader than the actual road bed that's there now, right? So is it 66 feet, which would be standard, and how long has it been that way?
I'm just taking a measurement off of our aerial photo. The road width through that frontage at 10 Chalmers is approximately 60 feet wide. And from the physical edge of the road to the front property line for Mr. Sutka's property, it's approximately 14 feet away. That road width would have been in place for a number of decades. It hasn't changed in quite a number of years, I can say that.
Yeah, and certainly when you're out on the property, it seems like the road is way far away from where the garage might be, but in case in fact, it's actually a lot closer if we consider what the actual road width is in that vicinity.
Through the chair, was that a follow-up question, Member Fletcher, or?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other members of the committee have any questions for Mr. Suka? No. Nancy, are you aware of anybody that wanted to speak for or against this application?
No, Charles, there was no one registered for this application this evening.
Okay, so how would the committee like to handle this application? Linda?
I'll make a motion here. Mr. Chairman, just bear with me for a second, though, please. Just got to bring it up. Okay, so I move that minor variance application A12-2023 for the property known municipally as 10 Chalmers Street in the urban area of Winterburn to provide relief from section 6.4.1A and 6.4.1C in order to permit a reduced building line setback of 3.4 meters for a proposed attached garage that is to be located within the front yard, be approved subject to, and I'm not going to read them all, but subject to the 4 A, B, C, D conditions set out in the staff planning report.
Thank you, Linda. Do we have a seconder for that motion?
I would, Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen. Is there any discussion on the motion? Chris?
So again, just a question, and it's probably back to David at this point. I know that he did not want the garage facing towards the road, I thought it was. And is that because he wanted to make sure that there was use of the driveway for the entrance to that particular garage, and so instead of having a new entranceway?
Through the chair, Member Fletcher, that's correct. That was to compel the front door to face the existing driveway so that vehicles are entering and exiting not directly onto the public road, but rather onto the private driveway before they enter and exit the public road for increased safety, and also so that the interface with the street, you don't see more prominently like the front door of a garage, that the impact to the streetscape is mitigated as well by having it face more inward to the existing laneway.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other discussion on the motion? Okay, so I'll call for a vote on the motion with a show of hands. All those in favor? It looks like everyone. So all those opposed would be no one. So just to remind Mr. Suka that the last day of appeal expires on May 11th, 2023. And again, you're free to leave at this point. Nancy will send you the information, and you're free to leave at this point, or you can mute your microphone and turn off your video and stay for the rest of them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. The next application is minor variance application A13 2023 for Claire and Miriam Metzger for the property at 7 Floor Pine Road in Floordale. The property is zoned settlement residential R1 and contains a single detached dwelling and a detached garage brackets horse barn. The applicant's proposing to replace the existing 91 square meter detached garage horse barn with a new 101 square meter detached garage, being a horse barn for transportation purposes, in the same location as the current structure, and is requesting relief from the following accessory buildings or structures requirements. Section 6.4.1E to reduce the required side yard setback from 1 meter to 0 meters. Section 6.4.1E to reduce the required rear yard setback from 1 meter to 0 meters. Section 6.4.2C to increase the maximum building height from 4.5 meters to approximately 5.5 meters. And section 6.4.4 to increase the total maximum allowable size for all detached structures from 100 square meters to 101 square meters for the new detached garage horse barn. And Mr. Metzger, Claire Metzger, is here with Orville Orville Martin by phone. Orville, I'm not sure who is going to speak to the committee, but you can go ahead.
Yes, hello. This is Orville Martin, and Claire is here with me here. So can you hear me there?
Yeah, all is good, Orville. Thank you.
Okay, good. So yeah, so we have applied to have this this barn replaced, like taking the old barn away and setting the new barn exactly where the existing barn garage type of thing is. And so we would have proposed to put it exactly where the old one is, which is actually right on the lot line, on the rear line and on the side line. So that would have been our proposal. So we are just, we read through this, and we're seeing that 0.6 is kind of what 0.6 meters is more of an acceptable number measurement for your office there, and we will work with that also if that's what it takes to make it work. However, Claire has spoken with the neighbors, the adjoining neighbors that are affected there, and they would be fine to have the building put exactly again where the existing one is. Is there anything else, Claire?
Yeah, I think pretty much covered it, I think. Yeah, we would very much appreciate it, but I guess if we do have to do the 0.6, we might have to go on a smaller footage for the barn, just because we're squeezed for one side is up against the weaving bed, the other side up against the lot line. Yeah, if we have to stay back 2 feet, we might have to shorten the barn 2 feet.
So I think that's all we have for now. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Do any members of the committee have any questions for the applicant? Chris?
Sorry. So again, a question about the property line that they're going to infringe upon. So the line that's at 0 right now. When I was out there, I saw like a concrete, small concrete retaining wall into the back, but I didn't know if it went as far as the structure where the horse barn is currently sitting.
Like that concrete pad to the east.
Yes.
It goes back as far as I think it goes right back to the behind the structure.
Okay, so if that is that integral to the structure, or integral for maintaining the property line? Like, is it because of the grade that kind of concrete retaining wall was put in?
I presume it is supposed to do the purpose of a retaining wall, because the grade slopes off so hard on the east.
right?
Yep.
Okay, so if you can't go to 0, what concerns might you have with that retaining wall in that location?
It will probably stay where it is.
Okay. So then you just have to, because I thought it might be part or integral to the existing, I don't know what kind of floors in that barn now, but is it like a
There's not much
concrete
of floor in there right now, so.
Okay, all right. So it's not going to impact whatever floor you're going to put in the future.
The retaining wall?
Right.
No, it's not going to impact it at all.
Okay. Good enough.
Chris, Linda, did you also have a question for the applicant?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Through you to the applicant. So,
Oh, sorry, you muted yourself.
no, I hit the mute by mistake. So my question is, you alluded to the fact that if the request is to go to 0.6 meters, you might have to reduce the size of the building. Is that going to impede your design very much if the building has to be shrunk down a little bit in order to accommodate the side yards? The back, the side and the rear.
Making the building shorter will not impact the design of it so much as space inside the barn.
Thank you. Jeremy?
Hi, yeah, I guess I have one question. So I think you've mentioned that moving the barn west is not possible because of the weeping bed. But do you have any issues moving the barn off the rear lot line? Even so much as I saw some comments wondering about the full 1 meter setback. Like, is there a difference between the setback that you need at the rear and at the side?
We could possibly accommodate the rear, but it's going to make it really tight between the barn and the house. And we'd like to keep the space between the house and the barn as far apart as we can.
Makes sense, yes. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other members have any questions for the applicant? Okay. Is there anybody here to speak either for or against this application?
No one registered this evening for this application.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. So how would the committee like to handle this application? Jeremy?
Actually, could I, through you, Chair, a question for planning staff for David? I guess I saw the engineering, I can't remember who made the comment that they actually would like the full 1 meter setback. In particular, because I think it's a very large building. And so in terms of long-term maintenance and drainage, I guess how comfortable are you with the 0.6 meters and trying to decide if both the rear setback and the side setback? Just maybe your thoughts on sort of that difference between 0.6 and the full 1 meter.
Yeah, sure, Jeremy, through the chair, member Karn, to address that. The 0.6 that we landed on, just for background, is kind of the absolute minimum setback that our engineering design and infrastructure manual would prescribe so that you can maintain proper grading, drainage, and access around a building like that. Engineering staff would prefer the full 1 meter, but their design manual that we rely on, and they rely on too, does speak to 0.6 as being an absolute minimum. So we landed on that as a compromise in this case to be consistent with what our design manual calls for in these cases as an absolute minimum. So I would say we did have further internal conversation with engineering staff, and they'd be willing to live with that as a compromise. They said to us internally.
Great, thank you, David. Linda?
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, I did have a very similar, I was going to ask David the exact same question about the 0.6 versus the 1 meter, and because I have to admit that I do have a concern. I understand it's legal non-conforming the way it is, but since we're tearing it down and building a new structure, I think we should try and meet things as best we can. And I understand the the implications with maintenance and particularly drainage, putting any kind of building or structure, even a fence on the property line and swales and drainage, it can be very, very challenging down the road. So, well, I think the 1 meter, I probably agree with engineering's comments, the 1 meter, if the 0.6 is something that can be lived with and meets the guidelines, then I can live with that as well too. But I have a lot of concern with going down to 0 for the rear and the side yard.
Thank you, Linda. Chris?
I have one other question with respect to if the 0.6 meters is put in place and they need to shift the barn over, is that going to reduce, if that's reducing the overall size of the barn, do we know what that is? And do we need maybe that 101, what was it, square meters for, or square, yeah, 101 square meters variance, or will it be then closer to that? Will it be closer to complying?
Through the chair, Member Fletcher, if given the depth and the width of the structure, if they were to build with a reduced footprint, they would meet the otherwise 100 square meter limit. What they're asking for here mimics the 101 would match exactly what's existing, which is only 1 square meter greater than the upper limit they're permitted. So if it was at a 0.6 setback from the back and the side, and they compensate by building a smaller footprint as a result, they would otherwise conform to the maximum size requirement. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers my question. It just leaves me with a dilemma about what we're going to do with number 3.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Member Fletcher, I think for the purpose of the application, it's probably best to leave it. We don't know at this point in time if they are going to shrink it or what they're going to do. So I'd much rather go with the 101, which is what it is existing. And if they feel they can shift the building enough to meet the 0.6 on both ends, but still make the 101, I'd really hate for them to have to come back and do the 101 again. So it's there. It's only that 1 more square meter, as David said.
It is very minor.
Very minor.
Thank you,
So
Linda.
I
agree
would
with
support
that.
leaving it. I would support leaving it.
I think, Linda, exactly. Then it gives them that option to still use up to that point, that amount. So I would agree with you. Any other questions from the committee? Nope. So how would the committee like to handle this one then? Jeremy, why don't you give it a shot? Linda's done the last 2.
Gonna let Linda do it. Perfect, thank you. I move that minor variance application A13-2023 for municipal address 7 Floropine Road, Floridale, requesting, let's see, I guess the one as written here, 1, relief from section 6.4.1.e for a rear yard setback of 0.6 meters for detached accessory structure, relief from section 6.4.2c for an increased maximum height of 5.5 meters to permit that. 3, relief from section 6.4.4 to permit a maximum size of 101 square meters. And number 4, relief from section 8.3.1 of the zoning bylaw to recognize a reduced lot area of 780 square meters. And 5, relief from section 8.3.2 to reduce a reduced lot width of 20 meters for the subject property. Be approved subject to conditions A, B, C as written. And just to be, I'm not sure if I was clear, in number 1, both the interior side yard and reduced rear yard setback of 0.6 meters.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do we have a seconder for that one? Chris, thank you. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, so all those in favor? So that's everyone. So all opposed would be no one. So the motion has been passed. So Mr. Metzger, Nancy will send you out some information. And just a reminder that the last day of appeal expires on May 11th, 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you. Okay, the next application this evening is minor variance application A14 2023 for 881 Weber Inc. for the property at 881 Weber Street North. The property is zoned stockyards, industrial commercial area, C8 and agricultural, and is currently vacant land. The applicant is proposing to develop the C8 zoned portion of the property with a light manufacturing operation and is requesting relief from section 20C.5.7 to increase the maximum building height from 10.5 meters to approximately 13 meters for the proposed new manufacturing business. And Charlotte from GSP Group is here to speak to the application.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Nancy. For a quick introduction, 881 Weber development site, like Nancy said, is part of a larger property. The property as a whole is 27.8 hectares, but this proposal and the industrial portion is only 1.8 hectares of the property, and that is the portion that's subject to the minor variance application. The proposed development includes the construction of a one-story industrial building and associated parking area. The industrial building will be just under 3,000 square meters and will be used for a window manufacturing business. The window manufacturing business requires the use of machinery with large overhead requirements, which cannot be met within the 10.5 meter building height permitted in the zoning bylaw. So for that reason, we needed to come for a minor variance for 13 meter building height, which can accommodate that large overhead. We agree with the opinion of township planning staff that the application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance. And so we ask that it be approved subject to staff's recommended condition. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you.
So do any members of the committee have any questions on this application? Linda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Charlotte. Just a quick question. So the site plan that was with the application that shows the building design, I presume that's looking at the building from Weber Street. How you'd be looking at it? That's not a side angle.
This is the site plan is a top-down angle, and Weber Street would be on the right side of that plan.
Okay. Oh, sorry. The one with the building design that shows the actual design of the building, not the site plan itself. I'm just curious if that's the facade that you're going to see from Weber Street as it's laid out in.
The facade that you would see on Weber Street is the east elevation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do any other members of the committee have any questions for Charlotte? Okay, not looking so. Is there anybody here from the public that wanted to speak for or against this application?
No one had registered for this application this evening. Charlotte, I don't know if your applicant was able to get in on attendance or not.
I believe the property owner is here.
Did they want to say anything?
I don't think so.
Okay.
They were here in case there were any questions that I couldn't answer, but I think we're okay.
Great. Thank you. So how would the committee like to handle this application?
Charles, I would move the application, the minor variance application A14 2023 for 881 Weber Inc. concerning the subject property described as part lots 18 and 19 GCT part 3 on 58R-3830 municipally addressed as 881 Weber Street North, requesting relief from section 20C.57 of the zoning bylaw to permit a maximum building height of 13 meters for an industrial warehouse building, 3,952 square meters be approved, subject to the increased maximum height of 13 meters only applied to the proposed industrial warehouse building of 3,952 square meters as shown on the application drawing.
Thank you, Stephen. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Linda, thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, so all those in favor? So that's everyone. So all opposed would be none. So the motion has been passed. So Charlotte, I'm sure you're aware that Nancy will be sending you out the recording paperwork for that. And just a reminder that the last day of appeal expires on May 11th, 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Charlotte. The next application is minor variance application A15-2023 for Arnold and Sherry Drung for the property at 19 Haley Court in West Montrose. The property is zoned settlement residential with site-specific provisions and contains a single detached dwelling, an in-ground pool, and a detached accessory building. The applicant is proposing an addition to the existing pool house and is requesting relief from accessory buildings or structures section 6.4.1E to reduce the required side yard setback from 1 meter to approximately 0.7 meters as follows. To recognize the existing side yard setback of the 30 square meter detached accessory building being a pool house, and to permit a proposed 17 square meter covered patio addition to the front of the pool house, also having the same reduced side yard setback. Jonathan Reinhardt is here as the contractor as well as the applicant and family. So I'm not sure, Jonathan, if you were going to speak to the application.
I certainly can. I'd like to thank the committee for hearing our application today. I'm joined by my clients Arnold and Sherry Drung on this call here. But very briefly, what we're dealing with is an existing pool house, and we're trying to add a small roof off to one side, which will cover a gas fireplace area. These are fairly large yards. It's a gorgeous subdivision, and my clients keep their yard and their landscaping up impeccably. We're really just trying to improve the yard, and the big thing here is the design intent for this roof addition is to mirror or create symmetry with the other half of the building. So in essence, we would just like to maintain that rear or side, I guess we could call it, eaves line with the existing building and extend out about 15 feet for this roof structure. As I understand it, there are no objections to this from the immediate neighbors, and it's hopefully not a big ask for us here. It's going to actually improve things. Both yards, the neighbor's yard and my client's yard, have a pool, and in fact, this is going to create some well-needed privacy in between the two pools. So we just would like to be slightly impinging on the 1 meter setback. Does anyone have any questions? Is there something I haven't answered?
That's good for now. I'm just wondering, Sherry, did you have anything to add that you wanted to?
No, just to add to what Jonathan said, there actually previously was a pergola structure where we would like to build. That pergola structure had some rot in it, and so we took it down. So on that existing area, we would now like to put an area that has a covered roof to add shade. Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess the last one would be Arnold. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
No, it's all been covered well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Do any members of the committee have any questions for the applicants? Chris, go ahead.
How long has the existing pool house structure been in existence?
14 years.
14 years? And how did it get in the wrong place in the first place?
I think the original constructor somehow muffed up slightly on the measurements.
Okay, because they are, I agree with you, there's substantial lots out there, but there's also in my opinion, there's no reason to make mistakes because we had lots of space to do it in. So I just didn't know how it happened in the first place.
Yeah, we were a little shocked actually when we found out that it wasn't in the right spot. And I think, Jonathan, you can comment that maybe it's a little slightly off angle. And that's how it got a little bit closer than it should have been at the one end.
Yeah, and in fact, I was the constructor of the project, but I was not the constructor of the thickened slab that it was built on. And we are very, very close to the 1 meter setback. In fact, it's just slightly skewed to the property line.
Great, thank you. Do any other members of the committee have any questions or for the applicant? Okay, it doesn't appear so. And Nancy, was there anybody here that wanted to speak either for or against this application?
No, the applicant's son is also here, but I believe just to observe at this time. Thanks, Jacob.
Great. Okay, so how would the committee like to handle this application? Chris?
I'd be willing to move that minor variance application A15 2023 concerning the subject land described as Lot 3, Plan 58M-7, 19 Haley Court, be approved and subject to the conditions A and B in the proposed recommendation.
Great, thank you, Chris. Do we have a seconder for that? Jeremy, thank you. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, so I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? That's all of us. So all opposed would be none. So that motion has passed. So just again, a reminder that Nancy will send out the appropriate paperwork to you guys and that the last day of appeal expires on May 11th, 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, the last applications for this evening's meetings are minor variance application A13 2022 and consent applications B15 22 and B16 2022 for Matthias Mueller for the property at 6 Covered Bridge Drive in Westmont Rose. The property is owned settlement residential with floodplain regulations and contains a single detached dwelling and accessory buildings. These applications were deferred for up to 12 months in May 2022 to allow the applicant time to address required agency study requirements and comments. The applicant is requesting a further 1-year deferral of the applications to complete the remaining study requirements and provide sufficient time for agency review and comment on the findings of the work. The applicant is proposing to create a new residential lot and is requesting the following. Application B15 2022 to sever an irregular shaped portion of property having approximately 6 meters frontage on Covered Bridge Drive and an approximate lot area of 1,707 square meters from 6 Covered Bridge Drive for the purpose of creating a new residential lot. Application B16 2022 to grant a 3.5 meter wide access easement to be located on the north and west sides of the existing dwelling on the proposed severed lands in favor of the proposed retained lands. The proposed severed lands being 6 Covered Bridge Drive will contain the existing single detached dwelling and accessory building. The proposed retained lands will contain a frame garage and will have approximately 8.8 meters frontage on Covered Bridge Drive and be approximately 11,205 square meters in size. Application A13 2022, subject to approval of the above noted consent applications, the following variances are required. Relief from section 8.3.3A to reduce the required lot frontage from 18 meters to approximately 6 meters for the proposed severed lands. Relief from section 8.3.2 to recognize the existing lot width of the proposed retained lands at approximately 8.8 meters, whereas 30 meters is required. And relief from section 8.3.3A to recognize the existing lot frontage of the proposed retained lands at approximately 8.8 meters, whereas 18 meters is required. And Nick Bogart is here from MHBC Planning to speak to the application, as well as the applicant and a couple of the neighbors.
Thank you, Nancy, for the introduction. Good afternoon, committee members, township staff, and those tuning in online. My name is Nick Bogart. agent for the applicant and associate with MHPC Planning. Thanks for the chance to be here this afternoon. As Nancy mentioned, the purpose of the proposal is to create a new lot from the large land holding in order to better utilize the subject lands. The existing home is currently utilized by a family member, and he'd like to construct a new home on the property to enjoy his retirement. We've been working through the application process with township staff, and our client has prepared various background reports in order to address comments and questions that have come up along the way. As indicated in the material before you, a deferral request was approved last May to allow for the project team to continue to work with regional and GRCA staff regarding outstanding items. Following the last deferral, discussions took place with regional and GRCA staff to sort out how to address the various matters. This has included site visit with GRCA staff last year to discuss the property and orientation of the buildings, coordinating with regional staff to organize a peer review of the hydrogeological study. These matters, particularly the hydrogeological study and peer review, took some time to get organized, then arranged discussions with the peer reviewer, and then some further discussions with staff, but the best path to move forward. And through that, there was a broad agreement reached on the other month on matters to resolve, and including undertaking some environmental work now versus as part of our GCA permit. So that led to the request before you this afternoon. Both regional staff and the GRCA are supportive of the deferral request as outlined in their comments attached to the report. Township staff have a similar recommendation as was put forward last year. And given our clients actively working on addressing matters and also the expenditures to address these matters, we'd request further deferral to allow for the work to continue and so that we can address remaining questions about the application. So I submit to the committee, it'd be premature to simply deny the application today while we're midway through addressing things without affording us the opportunity to continue working productively with the agency and township staff to conclude things. So thank you again. I'd be pleased to answer any questions from the committee. And as Nancy mentioned, client's also here if there's any questions particular to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bogart. Mr. Miller, did you have anything to add to that or?
No. No.
Okay.
Nick said everything I wanted to say.
Great. Now, sorry, are we allowed to ask questions on it based on a deferral, or was that not the case if they're going to vote on a deferral? Nancy, do you know, or David or Linda? Tons of experience.
Well, I think it's being brought forward again, so we can make have whatever discussion and then make whatever motion we feel is appropriate.
Yeah, Charles, I would agree with Linda. Because the request is for the deferral, but as you can see, the staff recommendation is for the refusal of the application. So I think it warrants some discussion by the committee.
So do any members of the committee have any questions about the application?
I guess just to clarify, I think he touched on it, the planning representative. Was 1 year not long enough? And will another year be sufficient?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. The 1 year was not long enough. As I mentioned, it took some time to get organized with the region to undertake their peer review of the hydrogeological study. They had a bit of a transition in how they organized review, where be through staff versus having it go through a peer review. So that certainly took some time to get organized and then just turn around to get that all done. So quickly, the 1 year evaporated. So now we're back here. But we do have a path forward with the GRCA and also the region to address the remaining matters. So that work is currently being organized to be undertaken so that we can get things addressed.
Thank you. Next, Stephen, that answered your question?
Yeah.
Great. Chris? You have a question?
Yes. So Nick, do you have an up-to-date plan with respect to where the flood lines actually are throughout that property? Or is that part of the contention right now that you don't have that?
The plan that was with the agenda would be the current one showing the flood line. It's not that part that we're working on refining. That was already done through survey, so the surveyed flood line is on the survey plan that was with it. It's more the wetland setback, and some of the environmental work is to just confirm where the wetland boundary is, and then what the setbacks would look like from that boundary, and then that would be the focus of the scoped environmental work, to just ensure there's any recommendations that need to be brought forward for that those are implemented.
So, and I could be wrong. So I just want to continue this kind of line of questioning. I could be wrong, as what I'm seeing on the plan is there is no space on the proposed plan for any further building structures. Am I right or am I wrong? So the plans that I see don't show any opportunity for further building on the new retained lot.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I do have a plan that I can bring up if I have a moment.
So what I guess where I'm going from is, if you're not any closer with GRCA and you don't have any revised plans, I'm asking you about the validity of what you're recommending, right? So is a deferral a good thing at this stage? Or when you're more prepared, should you come back with a better proposal?
I can share the screen and then I can just describe
okay.
what that looks like.
Yeah, you should be able to go ahead and share, Nick.
Okay. So here's a fairly clear version of the stubborn sketch that goes with the application. So you can see that the red line is lands to be stubborn, so that's where the current house is, and also the current septic. And then you see the driveway in for the new building, and that's also the safe access easement, so that you can have an access way that's above the flood line. And the southern portion of the subject lands, that's also the flood line that was surveyed in. I don't know if you can see my cursor there as I go along. Okay, perfect. And then you can see the purple line here is the 30-meter distance from the wetland, which is the area that the GRC is interested in making sure that any activities in there are taken appropriately. So the work to be done is to confirm where the wetland edge is, and then confirm where the 30-meter setback is, so that we can have that appropriately reflected, and then also ensure that there's any guidelines or any mitigation or particulars for construction that need to be implemented. And then the three colors here is the results of the slope stability. So the green is the area that there's no concerns about slope stability, and then the orange is I'll call it the take care area, and the red area is a no-go for any buildings. So it's certainly a bit of a complicated site, but we've identified an area that it is feasible to have a building. So we just need to make sure that we have the rest of the work done to support that. Does that help?
Yes, it did help.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Board, I was kind of on the same line as Chris. You're very confident that if you were to get the a year extension again, that this would all be resolved and everything ready to go?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We did have had good success addressing the questions that have come up. The other thing was also, I forgot to mention, but also related to the easement for the safe access, just ensuring that that is the correct way to deal with that. So we've got agreement on that front too. So that was the other thing we had to resolve. So as I mentioned, we certainly have a path forward with the GRCA in the region to sort things out, and I understand from township staff that those are some key components for them to ensure are addressed before that we can have this brought forward again.
Great, thank you. Do any other members of the committee? Linda?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the applicant and the applicant's agent. I'm going to be forthright here because I had the same concern the first time. I know there's a lot of studies still to be completed, but I have concerns with creating a lot on an easement. I appreciate the fact that it does have frontage, but you can't get your own frontage. And I know in lots of times there's lots of properties out there that do have these situations, but there can be challenges with those as well. And supporting an easement if the lot was already there and trying to get an easement through to the back to allow the development of a lot that could be developed is one thing, but to create that lot with an easement, I have reservations with, regardless of what the outcome of the studies are. So I'm just going to be forthright with you on that one.
Thank you, Linda. And Jeremy, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think it's actually a question for either Nancy or David, but it's not clear to me. I'm not sure. What's the difference at this point between a deferral and rejecting it? And like, if we reject it now, are they open to coming back with the plan again? Like, what does rejecting it actually mean in terms of their path forward as well?
Through the chair, Member Karn, good question. So if the committee were to deny the deferral tonight and uphold staff's original recommendation to deny the application, the applicants do have a right to then appeal that decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of the notice of decision. So that is a potential pathway they could take. It would then be out of the hands of the committee. Granted, the tribunal would only have the evidence brought forward to date. So some of the supporting studies are incomplete or not complete. So they would only go by what's been done to date. That would really be, I guess, the option of the applicant at that point if the deferral were rejected at this point. Nancy, I don't know if you had anything further to add to that.
No, I don't think so, David. Except that I guess if you did, Jeremy, just to confirm, if the application was denied, certainly the applicant could come back at a later time with a new proposal and try again. It'd just be a brand new application if it was just denied this evening. And that would be, I think David would shook his head. Yes, that's a confirmation on that as well.
Yeah, that would be another alternative rather than going to the tribunal, that the applicants could reapply with a new approach under a new application, perhaps.
So I guess the biggest difference is probably just the cost, right? Because they have to reapply if they want to come back versus the deferral, then we just put it off and that same amount has already been paid. Is that kind of right, David?
Yeah, correct, Charles. The costs that have been committed to date are non-refundable, so the applicant would be having to resubmit with new fees under the current fee bylaw.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the committee?
I have one regarding the easement as well. Was there any other options discussed regarding something as far as an alternative to the easement, such as along the property line to the top of that diagram that we just saw? I don't have the direction. I know that would affect the abutting property owner, but maybe that's to staff, is there other options? I had the same concern with easements.
Maybe. Go ahead, David.
Oh, I was going to say, through the chair, Member Hartman, the access proposal is put forth really follows the path of least resistance in terms of the topography of the site. Okay. There's a real reason, physical reason why it's been suggested as it is, and perhaps I could let Mr. Bogart expand on that if he has anything further to add. So.
Thank you. Yeah, the only thing to add also is their current driveway is in generally that location. So it's an opportunity to use the current driveway leading to the house and extend that driveway to also provide access to the new lot too. So it just allows the current building to keep using the same driveway and then the same driveway for the new one. And it does have frontage on Covered Bridge Drive. But since it's below the floodplain, that doesn't qualify as a safe access to the property. So that's why it has the other access available too, should that be required.
Great, thank you. Stephen, did that answer your question?
Yep. Yeah, it helps a lot because when I was there, I had some difficulty visualizing the property and location. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Jeremy, another question?
Sorry, there's a lot here, sorry. There's some notes about the septic, and so when you showed us where you thought that buildable house was on the retained lands, does that also include, do you believe that the septic system will also be on that same property, or will that be a separate easement that's also going to be required on the severed portion?
Sounds like a question for you, Mr.
Oh,
Bogart.
sorry, yeah, sorry, through to Nick, Mr. Bogart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. The property that's been identified for the new lot, the new house, will also accommodate a septic bed for the new house too. So it'll be on its own parcel, and then the current one will stay on its separate parcel.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? And I guess we'll still see, I see a couple names here that we haven't addressed. Are they wanting to speak for or against it?
Yes, Jeremy, we did have a couple of people register. Joachim Kahneman, I don't know if you wanted to address the committee.
At this point, no, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Sharon Hillhorst, did you want to make any comments to the application? I wasn't
Sharon,
able.
you're muted if you're trying to speak. There we go.
Ms. Hillhorst, did you want to make any comments to the application? I wasn't able, unfortunately, Charles, to get a video or an audio connection with her earlier.
There she is.
There she is. Ms. Hillhorst, can you hear us? There you
There you
go.
go.
We can't hear you,
No.
unfortunately. Can you turn the volume up or get closer to your microphone on your computer? No, unfortunately, we can't hear you.
Did she use the chat?
Yeah. On the bottom of your screen, there is a chat window, or did you want to type a question in there?
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so no questions from the public, and the committee's asked all the questions. So how would the committee like to handle this application?
I don't know, maybe through you, Mr. Chair, to the committee. I think, Linda, you're the one that said that you had some concerns, even if all the studies are done, and I guess I would echo that. It seems like there's a lot of concerns with this application. But I guess from my point of view, I don't have a strong opinion between giving them a one-year deferral and trying to come back with more of the evidence, or supporting staff's recommendation. So I'd be curious, I guess, what other members of the committee feel.
Well, I think if we let Linda decide, we know what her opinion is. So if somebody's looking for something other than that one.
Yeah, just to clarify that, Jeremy, my point was that the easement issue is a concern. With changing hands over time, and the way it's going through the lot. And who knows who's going to buy it down the road, where if they want to put a building or something, it's kind of limiting them. So that amongst the maintenance and upkeep, and you got to have really good neighbors to have that situation go forward. And as I said, you know, we have landlocked parcels that it's probably not ideal either, but this isn't a landlocked parcel. This is creating a new lot. So regardless of the outcome, I cannot support the application because I cannot support creating access via the easement for.
Great, thank you, Linda.
I'm trying to recall from the minutes if we had much of a discussion last time, but I don't know that we did have a whole lot of discussion on the application the last time.
So we just need somebody to make a motion either way.
District Chair.
Jeremy, go ahead.
I mean, I think that's good comments probably for the applicant to hear in terms of the concerns. I guess I would move that minor variance application A3 2022 be deferred up to 1 year.
Chris? Are you seconding
I'm
that?
waiting for the motion to get on the floor and then I'm going to add an amendment.
Oh, did you want to just do an motion yourself?
Well,
for an
I
amendment?
would say 6 months. You know, they've already had a year. So, Jeremy, if you want to change that to 6 months, I'd be willing to change to go to 6 months, and then hopefully the applicant will get the process moving and get their final plans done. And then I think we know where we're going if they don't do that within 6 months. It's already been a year. Let's move this up, and either they get their stuff together so that we can actually see whether it's feasible or not feasible. I agree with Linda that there's a concern about that easement going across the piece that's being severed. I'm not really comfortable with that, but I am willing to give them 6 months more, but I'm not willing to give them a year more.
But accept that amendment. So do you want me to remove the initial thing, or?
Just if you just change it as a friendly amendment there, Jeremy.
Yeah, I'll change that to 6 months.
And then I'll be willing to second it.
Okay, so we have Jeremy making the motion and Chris seconding it. So I guess the next question is any discussion on the motion. So I'm going to kind of ask Mr. Bogart if that's a realistic expectation. Is that something that you guys think you could do, or at that point, is it just we should be denying it if that's the feeling?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the 6 month timeframe should be acceptable. We're kind of a bit at the mercy of the review agencies in terms of timing. But as I mentioned, things are getting underway to get the environmental work done. And the hydrogeology, that was the other big thing that was left outstanding. And that's generally resolved subject to getting the confirmation, the environmental, there's no concerns. So that seems like a reasonable time frame. And as I said, we're a bit, it's a bit of out of our hands for the review timing, but we will do our best to make that timing.
Thank you. So we have the motion and the seconder. Is there any other discussion on the motion that I didn't hog all the time there? No. Okay. So then we'll call for a vote. So all those in favor? So that's Jeremy, Chris, and Stephen, and all those against. It'd be myself, and Linda's not picking one either way.
I'm abstaining right now. Yes.
Okay. So that makes the three. So the motion, I believe, is passed at that point. And then Nancy, is that something that you do to make it that the extension is for 6 months?
So Charles, we do have to do the other two recommendations for both the consent applications.
Oh.
And then the notice of decision would be sent out as normal with the 6-month deferral, assuming it would be the same for all three applications. So we do need to continue with B15 and B16 then as well.
Great. Thank you for that reminder, Nancy.
No worries.
So I guess, go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, I can move that consent application B15 2022 and consent application B16 2022 be deferred for 6 months, for up to 6 months.
Great, thank you. And then do we have a seconder on that motion? Chris, thank you again. Any discussion on the motion for those last two? That's good. So all those in favor? So it's going to be Stephen, Chris, and Jeremy, and opposed would be me and Linda. She's not going to vote. So I guess the motion is for the consent applications have been passed. And I guess you'll get your appropriate paperwork from Nancy. Anything else? Yep, go ahead, Nancy.
Oh, just that was only for B15. So we have a third recommendation for B16.
Okay, Jeremy read them both. I thought we were doing
Oh,
them
I'm
at the
sorry,
same
I missed
time.
that. I'm sorry, that was my mistake.
Am I
Okay,
correct, Jeremy? You did both, right?
yep,
I did, yes, but you
Okay.
probably could have confused me.
Is that okay, Nancy?
that is fine. Yes, thank you very much. I
Okay.
missed that.
Great. So again, the motion's been passed for all three, I believe. So just with the reduced time for the 6 months.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
We'll be back soon,
Hopefully not, right?
within 6 months.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Okay,
Thank you,
that
Jerry.
is,
Thanks for that.
thanks, everybody. So that's all the applications for this evening. So we do have the March 2023 minutes, which understandably, obviously can't be approved as necessarily as circulated because only 2 committee members were in attendance at this meeting. So essentially the resolution will read that the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting held March 20th, 2023 be received. Now Charles and Linda could comment as to whether or not any changes are necessary. But otherwise it would be, that would be the motion to put forward for the minutes.
I don't have any comments.
No, they look fine to me.
Okay, so we can have a mover for that.
I'll move
Would move
that.
that motion? Okay.
Great. We'll go with Linda. She was there. Sorry, Stephen, you'll second that then?
Yes, please.
Great, thank you. So then all those in favor? That's everybody. So all those opposed would be none. So that motion has been passed.
That's
And as
perfect.
there's nothing further, I'll adjourn the meeting.
Wonderful.
Does anybody have any comments? Oh, there we go.
Many applications for May, Nancy?
We have, yeah, another list of, I want to say 5, David. We have 5 applications.
4 total, yeah.
Yeah.
3 variances and 1 severance that are coming up.
Yeah,
Are you
so-
just being too tough on everybody, or what's the story here?
They just don't seem to stop. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I blame the good weather.
Yeah. So those that were just, David and I are just finishing those up. They'll probably, I may get them out Friday, but I'm thinking more likely early next week. The newspaper ad is Thursday next week, so we'll likely get them out emailed next week and mailed to everybody early next week then. So you'll see those come out. All right, and thank you, everybody. I have all your signatures and good to go. Wonderful. A long first meeting, but a very productive one.
Very good.
Thank you, Nancy. Good
All
job,
right.
Charles.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thanks. Night, everyone.
See you in a month.